Hi guys, Mauro here. Now that we just finished watching the tournament in Acapulco and Q just won, it's really interesting to me. How can someone, a guy that is so talented and uh, you see him so many months of the year that he's not really, his game is not really mentally, he's not in the right place. Then the week and for some reason in one week he decides that he's gonna focus completely on playing any match at top level, keeping the consistency not only obviously on his mind as well as on his physical game, which is pretty much. I mean, one thing leads to another. If your mind is in the right place, usually your body isn't going to be in the right place. Something that is very difficult to do when you do it the opposite ways. Many times we're not really there mentally. We have a lot of things in our heads, and we can still be hitting the ball pretty well, but it's difficult to do it consistently. So the having the mind in the right place, of course, that comes first. If you wanna have the sustainability, the reliability, and the consistency of the game. So I wanted to talk about one aspect of the game that a lot. This is something that I like to talk through to my students, the people that I teach, and when we are told to be mentally tough when we're playing, um, many times we're not really we don't really we think that we're being tough mentally, but we don't really know where to look. There is sometimes there is something specifically that we're not doing well in our heads. It's just not. It's very difficult to say. Come on, just stay mentally tough. Come on, you just stay tough, be bold, and keep it, steady for the whole match. But many times we feel like we're trying to be mentally tough, but we're not really. We don't have anybody that points towards. Okay, you want to really find out what is going wrong. This is what you want to pay attention to. You want to look for this and look for this. You don't have like several things that you say, okay, I'm probably missing here or missing this or this in my head. And that's what I wanted to break down. This is something that I like to talk to my students, because it can really open your eyes and probably pinpoint the one thing that you're really not paying attention to. So let's talk about when people talk about being tough mentally. To me, I like to call it endurance. You have to be you gotta be. I mean, it can be tenacity or perseverance. I like to call it endurance because it's something that you have to do repeatedly. To me, the key to being really good at something and becoming really good at anything is being consistent. Um, and how do you create? The only way you can create endurance is being consistent. You not create endurance doing something well only once or twice. You have to do it over and over and over, and that's how you create it. You are a good driver. Why? Because you've been driving day after day after day after day for how many years? Okay. You are probably good at cooking, and if you're a good cook. You're good not because you read the recipe and you did it fine. You did it good 4 or 5 times. You have to do it several times in a row. So once you do it several times in a row, that response. That cake that you're so good at baking is gonna come out good if you have the endurance. If you have created endurance. If you have created um, you got used to do it over and over and over, and then you end up having the same response. The same response is a good cake. So that's what I mean when I say you have to create. You got to create. You have to have endurance in your game, and that means pretty much the sustainability in a long term and the intensity. Okay, and we're gonna go through that so I can explain it. I can explain it to you. Okay, first thing, there is an endurance of the pre-action. We're gonna go through points. If you see it here, we're talking about endurance pre-action. This is the most difficult one. Uh, the pre-action is when you say, okay, for example, you gotta go work out, and the difficult part about doing something that you don't want, or that sometimes you want but it requires a pretty good effort, is the difficult part is what happens before convincing your mind that you have to do it, that you want to do it. Okay, that's you gotta create that endurance of being consistent. Okay, you might struggle to say, hey, they call you and they say, hey, Jimmy, you want to go hit today? Oh my, and you're like, oh my God, what time you want to go? Oh, we can go at 3 o'clock. That's the only time I can. And you're like, oh man, it's gonna be like not 95 degrees out there at that time. So that's a pre-action. That before you play, that's the most difficult part for everything. Before you go to the gym, before you go to play, when you know you're gonna do something, you have to do something. The endurance, the pre-action endurance, that's the most difficult one. Convincing or forcing or just making yourself. You don't want to get to the point that you make yourself do it. You gotta get to the point that you say, you know what, my mindset has been shaped to the point that I just like to do this. I look forward. It's a challenge. And when you push yourself to do it over and over and over, one of the first things that you're gonna notice is that as you do it consistently, what was a challenge becomes something that you look forward, because there is, that initial push to go to do it. It's like, oh my God, I gotta do that. But once you start doing it, there is kind of a rush, like, okay, here I go. Against all odds and against everything that has been working in my mind and my body saying I'm tired, or probably my wrist is hurting a little bit and you shouldn't be playing, or whatever it is, but you're going. So that pre-action endurance is the one that is the most difficult one, and you got to find the way. Whether it's creating mental, you gotta create a mental pictures in your mind where what's gonna happen if you do it, or what's gonna happen if you don't do it. So if you see the result in your mind, it's much easier to convince your body and your mind to do it. You want to create, you want to have mental pictures. You can create a mini movie in your mind where you see yourself, okay, you know what, I like it when I get there, and it feels good when I'm running, and when I'm hitting that ball, and when I'm pushing myself. I mean, it's you have to create in your mind. If you're the kind of person that is against the mental games and things like meditation and yoga and visualization and mental imagery, and all those kind of things, you are going totally against what the best thing is that what is pretty much the most important tool that is gonna take you where you want to go. It's in your head. It's in your mind. And when you feel it in your body, the only way you're gonna make your body change, it's gotta start up here. It's gotta start in your mind. So if you're not the kind of person that if when you start listening to stuff like, okay, you know what, mental tools like visualization or yoga, stuff like that, and you kind of roll your eyes, then you know what, don't do it if you don't want to. But it's totally going against yourself. I mean, you surely don't have the slightest idea of how much that can help you, and it's very easy to start doing it. You see, you want to give it a try. Just give it a try if you want to. Go to bed at night, spend 5 or 10 minutes visualizing. If you're missing the forehand, visualize me hitting that forehand, and believe me, you're gonna start seeing results. But you gotta create a very vivid emotion, a very vivid image in your head, because the images, they have to be mixed with emotions. Otherwise, it doesn't work. So the pre-action endurance, that's the first thing, that's the most difficult one, but you gotta push the transcend beyond that one. The next one is a physical, and physical has preparation response. Okay, preparation response, obviously that relates to training, to being ready before. You're not gonna have physical endurance if you don't prepare, if you don't train, if you don't practice, if you don't whether it's for a sport, or if it's for a task that you have to do at work, or if it's a school for project or something, So you gotta have that the preparation response, the physical preparation response. We're talking about tennis, of course. This is a sport, so that means just the training. Okay, now, when you do the training, it's not just a matter of going out there and hitting the same and doing the same thing over and over. Okay, What we want to focus is long-term sustainability and long-term accurate intensity. Long-term sustainability, I'm talking about whether you play a match that is 1 hour long or 1 hour and 45 minutes or more than 2 hours, you're not gonna fluctuate. You're gonna be able to go all the way. So your physical response, the way you start the first game, is the way you're gonna finish the last game, and you have been able to do that because you have prepared yourself. That's what I mean with the long-term sustainability. And the long-term accurate intensity means that the way you start playing, we're not talking about being in shape for the first and the last game. Now we're talking about the accuracy of your game, of the way you're hitting the ball, of the way you're moving. Of course, it has to do with shape. If you're not in shape, you're not going to be able to hit the ball well. But let's assume that you're in shape. Now, a lot of people are in shape, but they cannot keep their game steady. The level of game they're playing. Oh, I'm playing super well my first 2 games, and then fluctuations, and then I go well and fluctuates again. So the idea is that you want to try to create that same steady level accuracy of your game from the first to the last game of the match. So we're focusing on the shape, the way you start. You're on fire here on the first game, and you're on fire on the last one as well. And your game, if you're shape wise well, and you can sustain that all the way through the match, if you're in shape, your game being your response, the response of your game, of how well you're hitting the ball, if you're putting the ball where you want, and all that, is pretty much just gonna match your shape most of the times, because you know that if you're moving well, and if you're getting to the ball in on time, you're hitting the ball where you want it, you're doing what you want to it. So that's the physical part of the game. And then the other part where you say, okay, I'm moving the ball around, I'm doing whatever I want, that goes hand in hand. So you want to pay attention when you practice it. I not only want to be in shape, or let's say sometimes we practice, and I would say that most of us, we don't really practice to be in shape. We practice to hit the ball where we want it. Well, focus not only to put the ball where you want to, but pay attention to get into the shot, get in the right position when take that extra step, get in good position to the ball. That's a physical part that you want to do with the body. And once you do that, it's super, super easy to manipulate and do what you want to the ball, to put it where you want it. So look for that sustainability on being in shape, and look for the sustainability and look for the sustainability of being accurate with your game plan. Those go hand in hand. Okay, on the long-term accurate intensity, the long-term accurate intensity, one thing that I wrote down is that in the long-term accurate intensity, there is no effort measured. That's one thing that happens very often. A lot of people, they start measuring their effort, so they don't hit. It's not well done what they're doing. When you start measuring your effort, your game starts. It's just start decreasing, starts coming down. It's not you're not as good as you were when you started. That is the main. I would say that is the main goal of both the sustainability, being in shape, and the sustainability of hitting the ball well, is that you want your body to get used to. I'm not measuring efforts. I don't want to be like, okay, I'm going to put 90% on this one, and I'm going to put 70% here. No, I mean, that's how you keep that sustainability. So don't measure the effort. Just get used in your head to say the way I start, the way I finish. It's like 12 rounds in boxing. You're gonna fight. If you're gonna fight someone, you're not gonna go in the first round. Oh, okay, well, just go easy, because if you're distracted, boom, they connect you and you're down, and you might be down 36 seconds or 15 seconds. No, you gotta go out there and you're ready, and you have to stay. Sometimes it's difficult to keep the sustainability because the match is really long and very demanding physically and mentally, but you wanna try to at least at least to keep it like that. Okay? All right, and the third one is mental. Okay, mental endurance. It can be many different things. It can be, of course, a mental endurance, you have accurate, sustainability, and intensity. It's the same thing. You have good sustainability and good intensity. So you go for a long distance and you go with all of it. You go for a long distance and you go strong. Okay, try not to let it fluctuate. When it's mental, this is where you want to pay attention. This is the one you want to pay attention. We already talked the physical. So you want to pay attention to moving well, and you want to pay attention that if you pay attention, if you move well, that's the first thing you want to do. Move well, get there on time, be in shape. And when you do that, you're going to get to the ball and you're going to put it where you want it. You want to do whatever you want to. You're going to manipulate and control it. Now, mentally, you want to be accurate and sustainable. Now, you keep this sustainability and the intensity, but the thing is, sometimes we feel like we play a match and we feel like we're good. I'm moving good, and I'm not tired. But sometimes where you're failing mentally is with your game plan. You're probably not trusting your game plan, okay? Or your bold response to whatever is happening. You're kind of weak. Oh my God, this guy's really good. There goes a weak response. He said, come on, let's raise the bar. The guy's good. Well, let's raise the bar. If he's playing well, whatever. You gotta keep the bold response. Adaptability. This guy used to suck. His forehand used to suck, or his backhand, and now practicing, he's really good. Well, you got to adapt to that. Okay, panic treatment. When you're freaking out, well, are you just freaking out and losing it, or are you able to calm down and say, okay, settle down, keep on your breathing, and and this is what we're gonna do. You know, you just calm down and you have a better idea what you want to do. Belief. You start missing, so your belief is not the same. You know, you gotta work on that. You gotta have that belief and say, okay, well, you know what? If I'm not in a good day, so I'm not able to hit the ball as hard as I usually do, well, just go down, slow it down, and go to the level where you get the consistency, and then you start looking. If this is not working, I have to look for something else in my arsenal that is gonna help me. It could be just being calm and playing longer punch with the guy, hitting or being more consistency, or hitting more slices, or moving the ball around a little more, going for angles, banana shots, drop shots, high balls. I mean, you gotta move your game around the game plan. You know, it's like chess. You gotta look different. You gotta try different stuff, and you're focused. That's one of the first things that we lose when things go wrong. The focus, because we start focusing on the negative things. So you really want to pay attention. Stay on the same on the thing that you started from point one. You want to stay on that. And many times you have to be. One thing that I want to mention, guys, is super important, is your self-awareness, being mindful of where your head is going, what's going on. You gotta step out of your body and say, okay, what's going on? Something is wrong. You got to be mindful of yourself. You got to be able to step out of your body and analyze and say, okay, this is what's going on. And you got to do it do it all the time. You got to pay attention to that. You got to be, how many times you go and play a match and you lose, and your friends that were on the bleachers, they were like, dude, why you keep hitting that ball to this guy's backhand, to this guy's forehand? Well, because that's his backhand. No, this guy was a lefty. How come you never noticed that? See? It has happened to all of us, that the guys outside the court, they notice things that we don't. So you got to be able to be the guy on the bleachers and say, okay, this is what's going on. But you only do that being mindful of what you're doing. Okay? All right, guys. Well, I'm sorry it went a little longer than I wanted. I hope it helps. Give me a like, subscribe to the channel. Just go out there, ball, center, be perseverant, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.